A U.S. expert found that the Chinese Communist Party is collecting data on Americans in a brand new way through their coffee machines. Let's take a look.
A recent report suggests that the Chinese Communist Party is obtaining data via smart coffee machines made in China. Author Christopher Balding published his research through New Kite Data Labs. He warned that such tactics can be used to spy on U.S. consumers. According to his report, these machines collect data on a variety of subjects, including drink production, location, payment information, and other data. In commercial environments like hotels, they can even access route information and payment methods. Some of the coffee machines are made by the Calorum firm, based in China's Jiangsu province. The report noted the manufacturer provides no information on data storage or privacy. The company has been selling models widely throughout the United States and Europe. The report concluded, quote, "While we cannot say this company is collecting data on non-Chinese users, all evidence indicates their machines can and do collect data on users outside of mainland China and store the data in China." Balding added that he won't disclose how he obtained the information. That's because he doesn't want the Chinese Communist Party, or CCP, to prevent him from learning more about their data collection efforts against Americans and others. Cybersecurity experts have long cautioned about similar threats posed by Chinese apps like TikTok. Black Ops Partners CEO Casey Fleming commented that the Communist Party of China is collecting vast amounts of data. It may not be used against you today, but this information might be used against you, your company, or your country in the future.
Leaked recordings suggest that TikTok user data stored in the U.S. could still be accessed by employees in China and land in the hands of the Chinese Communist Party. The popular video sharing app boasts nearly 140 million monthly active users in the U.S., and most of them are teenagers. Here's a closer look.
Your personal data could have already been seen by the Chinese Communist Party. That is, if you use TikTok. TikTok is owned by Chinese company ByteDance, and leaked recordings from internal meetings, seen by BuzzFeed, reveal that China-based employees of ByteDance have repeatedly looked at American TikTok users' private data. Casey Fleming is the CEO of cybersecurity firm Black Ops Partners, and he has some advice for TikTok users.
You must understand and you must assume that technology from China is tracking personal information that can be used against you and your values.
It's unclear specifically what kind of private information was seen by Chinese employees, but according to the leaked recordings, everything can be seen and some employees have access to everything. The BuzzFeed report comes in contrast to TikTok previously denying allegations of sharing user data in China and says it would never do that even if it was asked to.
It's to have plausible deniability, and it's all about gaslighting and creating their own narratives. TikTok was developed in China with Chinese developers. It's controlled by the Chinese Communist Party.
The leaked recordings contain 14 statements from 9 different TikTok employees. It reveals that at the very least, engineers in China had access to U.S. data between September 2021 and January 2022. As of April this year, TikTok has nearly 138 million monthly active users in the U.S. 10-year-olds to 19-year-olds account for the majority of this figure.
A Taiwan hospital announced last Friday that it would not renew its employment contracts with 2 doctors. That's because they conducted organ transplant surgeries in mainland China without reporting the procedures to the hospital. The Changhua Christian Hospital said in a statement, the Chinese Communist Party continues to harvest organs from living human beings. The targets include Tibetans, Uyghurs, Christians, and most commonly, Falun Gong practitioners. The statement added that the 2 doctors have conducted multiple organ transplant surgeries in China and have gone against the rules for transparent and traceable organ sources. The hospital is concerned that they violated medical ethics. Organ harvesting practices in China have received increasing criticism in recent years. The 2021 U.S. report on international religious freedom cited UN officials to highlight Chinese organ harvesting. It went on to list a similar lineup of targeted groups in detention in China, including Falun Gong practitioners, Uyghurs, Tibetans, Muslims, and Christians. Last month, the European Parliament passed a resolution condemning organ harvesting in China. It's the body's 3rd similar resolution in the past decade. The Chinese Communist Party has been working to gain key infrastructure contracts and make trade in roads in America's southern backyard, Latin America. NTD spoke with leading Congress members from the region, denouncing Beijing's actions this weekend at the Brazilian edition of CPAC.
Brazilian congressmen and intellectuals shared a major concern this past weekend at the country's edition of the Conservative Political Action Conference, or CPAC, that is, the Chinese Communist Party's actions in South America.
Chinese companies are just a concession from the Chinese Communist Party. So at some point, at any given time, they will serve the party. And the party is a power project, an organization that seeks power.
That was Paulo Eduardo Martins. He's a leading conservative representative running for Brazil's Senate this year with the blessing of President Jair Bolsonaro. China is Brazil's largest trading partner, accounting for about 1/3 of its exports. The South American country has been a traditional U.S. ally since World War II. It's also one of a handful of nations in the region, where Beijing has replaced Washington as the leading foreign player over the last 2 decades. And China's interests might extend beyond commerce, even playing a role in U.S. homeland security. Former U.S. Southern Command Chief Admiral Craig Fowler said in a congressional hearing China was looking to use infrastructure to project its own military power in our hemisphere. Here's what a Brazilian congressman had to say.
We need to nurture in Brazil the idea of imposing restrictions to stop enterprises controlled by the Chinese Communist Party from getting strategic initiatives. See what's happening in Europe. We need to prepare for something very big and dangerous that might come over the world. Brazil might be at great risk with our logistics in the hands of the Chinese Communist Party.
NTD also spoke with Rafael Fontana. He's the former PR director of Huawei in Brazil. The Chinese telecom giant is considered a national security threat by the U.S. Federal Communications Commission.
Of course, the region is strategic from a military standpoint. With China's penetration in Latin America, the U.S. might, for the first time in its history, have a military threat next to its borders.
What's more, NTD spoke with Senator Maria Fernanda Cabal from neighboring Colombia about the issue.
If the United States doesn't give investment proposals to countries like Colombia, the Chinese will come with their money. The Chinese are the new colonizers of the world, of the third world. They did it to Africa already, and now practically the whole of Latin America is in China's grasp.
Also on the event's guest list, the Brazilian president's son, Congressman Eduardo Bolsonaro. Upon hearing about the Chinese Communist Party's religious persecution, he took a stance condemning atrocities against the peaceful meditation practice Falun Dafa, targeted in China since 1999.
I'm Eduardo Bolsonaro, and I oppose the Chinese Communist Party's persecution of Falun Dafa.
Javier Milei, a representative and presidential candidate from Argentina, added,
Before I got elected, I said I wouldn't trade with assassin regimes. I'll never push for relations with China while China remains communist and doesn't respect its citizens' freedoms.
Brazil is an agricultural powerhouse. It is among the top 5 producers of food in the world and is number 1 in soybean crops. With reduced exports from Russia and Ukraine amid the war, China has been increasing business dealings and its influence in the country.
In Brazil, too many people linked to agribusiness don't notice that China is making inroads in that industry. An industry it needs. It needs food. And bit by bit they are infiltrating the food business to, at some point, strike it from within. Too many people are misled, thinking all that matters is money. Many times you can get money, but you'll lose your freedom. And after that, you might lose that money anyway, as we've seen happening when dealing with the Chinese.
New home prices have fallen, but buyers are still holding tight to their pocketbooks. In China's softening property market, desperate real estate developers have come up with an unusual way to attract buyers. If a buyer doesn't have the funds for a down payment, no problem. Some Chinese property developers will take wheat or garlic as a substitute. Mainly targeting Chinese farmers, 2 real estate companies from central China's Henan province are offering to let buyers trade garlic or wheat crops as down payments on property. For every pound of wheat, the developer will knock off about 27 cents from the down payment total. Up to $23,000 can be substituted with wheat. Cities across China have introduced hundreds of easing measures this year to revive the property sector. More common promotions include free parking lots or renovations. But widespread COVID-19 curbs have dented buyer confidence. The Chinese Communist regime stepping up its strict hold on the Chinese people. A report sheds light on how some citizens are rewarded for tattling on others. Here's more.
China is offering its citizens cash rewards of up to $15,000. That's for tip-offs about people who, as they describe it, endanger national security. The Chinese Communist Party views national security as a broad range. It includes information about corrupt party officials, as well as human rights violations happening in China, all of which are kept largely under wraps. A number of reporters, human rights activists, and people fighting for their own rights have been arrested for allegedly endangering this version of national security. Foreign correspondents, missionaries, and NGO staff are among those who have been detained on that charge, as well as people who have studied abroad and were exposed to the influences of the free world. As for how these people are found out, the regime encourages people to report others for rule breaking. Successful informants can receive either spiritual rewards via certificates or material rewards of cash. This is according to regulations released by the Ministry of State Security last week. Experts say such campaigns are destructive to society.
The so-called foreign spies, enemy forces, infiltrations, these are all fabrications of the CCP in order to create an atmosphere of red terror. They make people distrust and suspect each other. They encourage people to tip each other off to authorities. This will make spy hunting and snitching a trend. Then slandering and framing will follow.
For years, Chinese authorities have encouraged the public to report so-called foreign spies and their Chinese collaborators. Such efforts have ramped up under the country's current leader, Xi Jinping. Experts say the boosted spy hunt reveals authorities' nervousness about public resentment toward the top leader.
Their purpose is to help Xi Jinping stabilize his power at the 20th CCP National Congress and continue to hold his position. So they use this opportunity to nip all buds of instability. They target everyone who's not on their side and any political dissidents. This is not limited to regular citizens, but also senior party officials. Their purpose is to silence people with fear and suppress any potential resistance against Xi Jinping.
Xi Jinping will seek a third term during an important Chinese Communist Party Congress this October. He first came to power 10 years ago. That's after being selected by the former Communist Party leader. He was not elected by the Chinese people.